Oh my gosh, it started. Wow, why do you get the lamp there? There's like Uncle Lamp is better. There's Zelda Lamp. But the main thing about this category is that we will not be rescuing Zelda at all. We're just tired of her. So far, it's not very glitchy. But we'll be seeing something really shortly called the quadrant glitch. The way the quadrant glitch works is it abuses a property. I think he's going to do quadrant glitch. Let's see. Yep, he's doing quadrant glitch. Attracting that guard so we can clink him and release a spin on the same frame. This is gonna update his position twice. I didn't get it. It's gonna update his position twice across, I believe, both axes, and you're gonna see the effects of that once he gets it. Oh, I didn't get it. This is both frame and pixel perfect, so getting it in a marathon setting first try is... that'd be nice, but it's also really hard. Well, there we go. And right there you see the effects of that. It made the game think that doors should act a different way than they normally do, so instead of exiting, it treated that like a subtile door. Right here is a very specific lineup to keep it broken. And the jump in the pit rearmed the exploration glitch for use later. Now we're headed to Kakariko from the well. So something obvious you might notice is that there are no sprites on the overworld. And that's due to how the game handles sprites based on game mode. In the first game mode, which is the ones you have before rescuing Zelda, it uses a smaller set of sprites as its list. And that list covers just the stuff around Hyrule Castle and Link's house. And there's more to that later. Just keep in mind that this list is smaller because that's important. Now Glan's doing a thing known as Citrus Clip, which is going to allow him to wrap the map from Kakariko to Eastern Palace. And no, that's actually just a normal net. There are no memes in this. This part's pretty tough because if he were to move right at all, he would hard luck. But he got it first try. Which is not at all surprising for the world record holder in this. Now, with that EG armed, what's going to happen is he'll be sent to the lower layer when he hits that Popo right there. Oh, never mind. He hit the Salthos instead.
Alright, I'm back.
Taj, the chat wants to know where you are.
Well, I'm here now. So, as we can see, he's going through Eastern Palace, and there's not really too much that changes for the rest of the dungeon here. It's pretty much played normally.
I'm glad you're not Christos, because he says played world, and I would have been really confused if he said played normally. We're not going to see any played yet.
There will be some later, though. Did you already cover some of the things such as items that you can't get in the category?
Nope.
So let's go ahead and get into that. There's, the reason this is called max rain and not 100% rain is because there are some items that are actually impossible to get while the game is still in this rain state. Those include items that are in the offshoot areas on the overworld, like Zora's Domain, or the Hobo Under the Bridge, or even the Master Sword Pedestal. Any of the items in those areas you can't obtain, as well as any standing items on the Dark World Overworld, which include the Quake Medallion and a few heart pieces, plus 2 of the bottles. So overall, we're going to wind up with 19 hearts, no Quake Medallion, no flippers, and only 2 bottles by the end of this. But everything else we're actually able to get.
Yeah, I covered about half of that by pointing out the lack of sprites and a teaser as to more info to come.
Yeah, and we'll definitely see that later on as far as what is actually happening with those sprites on the overworld.
So far, everyone who's been taking notes should know that the sprite set for this game mode is smaller than the other sprite sets.
And you may have noticed it a little earlier, but Glan did go into a room that you don't see that often, especially in speedruns of this game that aren't randomizer. The blue rupee room that's in the dark section where you get the key off of the Igor. We actually need about 60 rupees from there, plus the 100 in the back of Sahasrar's closet, in order to purchase a blue potion, which we'll be using for some very fun stuff that actually made this possible to have the full 19 hearts rather than 18 3/4.
It's still raining.
Yeah, it's going to be raining almost the entire time. There's one section where it doesn't rain, but that's because we chose to open up the Mire dungeon with Ether rather than doing other shenanigans. Just kind of a category choice. So we get the 100 rupees, we get some bombs. And immediately with the ball that we picked up in Kakariko, we're going to go up to the potion shop.
This is our first upwards teleport, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, he had to go all the way east to correct that camera. Otherwise, he'd hard luck.
Yeah, you gotta be really careful with the overworld transitions. If you're off by even just a little bit when the camera is not completely locked to the side, then you can hard lock your game. We got a nice little fake flipper set up there by bonking off of the tree. And
Yep.
as it turns out, going into this cave and doing a mid-air save and quit is just slightly faster than going into the castle and doing a save and quit in the same way. So that's why we do it here.
I think now's a good time to point out the misconception that fake flippers is a one-frame trick and that the game doesn't know that you have flippers.
Yeah, I think you looked at it and it was something like a 7-frame window, but it's still kind of... Yeah.
It just so happens to be that to move right one frame, you need that many. To move right one pixel, you need that many frames.
Yeah, because the acceleration when you're in water is just so slow.
And the game knows the entire time that you don't have flippers. The difference between this version of the game and all later patches is that it doesn't stun you.
So one thing you see right there is that he's able to enter the staircase from behind, which, combined with jumping into the void there, keeps his exploration glitch armed. You may have seen a little bit earlier when he was going out of Kakariko Well at the start of the run, but we need it here. So
that big key? We don't need Zelda.
Yep, we don't need Zelda at all. In fact, it's banned to get her because otherwise we wind up ending the rain state.
But why do we get the big key?
Well, that'll come later when we open up other chests and such. I think that's where he's headed right. Wait. Yeah, he's headed to Hera right now.
Okay, I trust you.
Right now we're headed to Hera for 2 reasons. One is to collect the Moon Pearl, and the other is to collect the Ether Medallion. Oh wait, no, we don't get the Ether Medallion here. I think we're just... What are we doing here?
Water dashing.
Man, I need to go back my notes because I forget how this route goes anymore.
Yeah, you do, because I just plan to wing it.
Alright, so we're getting Moon Pearl, and then... That's right. We're going to exit Hera here and go straight to the mirror. We do want to have the mirror as early as possible, as well as getting the Moon Pearl, which greatly increases our mobility throughout the overworld.
Stop raining.
Slightly. It's still thundering outside.
It's just fog up here. Chat pointing out that saving Zelda means an eternal drought, which also brings to mind, why is it called Desert Palace? Deserts don't actually mean sand. Deserts are governed by how much precipitation it gets, but we're going to see a lot of precipitation around that area.
You may be confused as to why Glan took a death there, and it's actually to set up some RAM values so that we can actually maneuver in what we call Plaid World. Because Plaid World is really just walking through bits of RAM, and if we didn't do a death here, then it's very likely that we wouldn't be able to collect one of the major heart pieces that is hard to get in this category, the Lumberjack heart piece.
Okay, do you know what RAM that is? Because I actually don't know the specifics of that one.
It just has to do with taking a death while in a cave state. I don't really know the specifics behind why certain values of RAM get changed based on which deaths you take. But in order to get to Plaid World, we have to do a Blue Potion YBA in a subtile door. But Glan is going to take a safety save here, because if it doesn't really work well, he doesn't want to have to reset and go get another potion. Now, you may notice when he saved and quit, he didn't get an option between different areas, which is one of the consequences of being in the rain state and not rescuing Zelda yet. The only actual available save and quit spot is the one at Sanctuary.
Well, after the Old Man. Before Old Man, it's Uncle, then during Old Man, I believe it's still Old Man Cave.
Right, and then after Old Man, it becomes Sanctuary.
So what this is doing is we're incrementing the game mode with two values at the same time. It's 2 plus... No, 1 for the subtile door, and I guess it must be B for the potion. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. What all that matters is that ultimately we get the flute menu, as you saw, and this brings you to what looks like the overworld. But the thing is, first off, it's using RAM. It's using like RAM that it shouldn't be looking at, and also tile interactions between the overworld and the underworld. For some reason, they're different. As Chad is pointing out, this is perfectly fine. This is exactly what we want to see.
And interestingly, he had to jump into some water there in order to initiate this scrolling, which is on purpose. Because what we're trying to do right now is synchronize Link's position with where all of the sprites are, which doesn't happen normally when you do a fake flute while in a dungeon or a cave. So we actually have to land in water, which makes a game try to correct Link's position. And then because the old man cave is so far down along the way all the rooms in the game are lined up, it takes just, I think, a minute to scroll all the way down to there. Now, he didn't quite hit the transition properly there, which is kind of bad, but that's why he took the safety save, because it's really easy to cause a bad transition when dealing with this particular series of glitches here and wind up just screwing over what you were trying to do.
Yeah, he mentioned that this has been giving him problems earlier, but I will not repeat the coarse language that he opted to use, because it is not very family friendly. And I think he will need a stern talking to later for using that language.
I also think he wanted to farm a bit more rupees there than he did, because I think he only got 170, and I forget how many you actually want here. But one of the consequences of the using RAM for collision and tile interactions is that you get a bunch of weird things like these rupee tiles that are just randomly strewn about, which we use to our advantage.
And it just so happens that we also have water tiles, which is exactly what we need.
Right, in order to initiate this scrolling back in order to sync Link's position, as I was talking about earlier. There are also a bunch of other things, such as spikes and door transitions, which are in the middle of the area, which some of them are kind of weird because they act like the sewer door in the castle.
There's also just straight-up key doors. If you go into Plaid World from the lower layer and flute to 2, at the spot, it's just going to suck out all your keys in like 2 frames.
Yeah, since any kind of value of RAM could wind up being any kind of tile for the underworld, you just wind up with all kinds of weird bits of collision, such as walls you can't see, and spikes, and all sorts of things. So now Link is synced, but now we're in a weird state we like to call Plaid World, which is kind of evident due to how the graphics look. And you can kind of tell where you are based on where the rooms are located and such. So it's not too hard to figure out where to go. But there are some weird ways you have to move in Plaid World in order to stay synced the way that we want to, so we can interact with sprites, which we'll get into later. But now that we have arguably the last heart piece ever to be collected in this rain state, it was the last thing. It was the last thing that made this max percent.
I don't know. We still have the ultra you-know-what world.
Oh, the Ultra Dark? I don't think that... I'm not entirely sure that's going to be found ever. I don't really have hopes for it.
I don't either, but it's a great idea.
But Lumberjack is just one of those weird things that's so hard to get because of just the way that room is laid out. It's in a room that we call... It's really hard to describe why it's so difficult to get if you can't defeat Aghanim and advance past the rain state, but it has to do with just the way the game interprets how that room is constructed, being in weak EG and all of that. It's just so hard to get to otherwise.
I couldn't even get it in the TAS without killing Aghanim.
Or doing what we did here, which is very slow.
Oh yeah, we're in Ganon's tower now.
Yeah, we did a couple of screen wraps so that we can avoid the collision with the boulders, which, as you saw, were falling Lionels.
Oh
but
yeah.
we do this.
So chat, remember how I said that the sprite set for this game mode is smaller? Well, the game doesn't really know that. It's still looking at a certain size of sprite sets.
And it just grabs what's
available.
available.
Okay, just for simplicity's sake, imagine you have 5 sprites in this game mode and 10 in all the others. So the game's looking for 10 sprites, and so it starts here and it looks at the 5 sprites in the light world. And, okay, those are correct, but because it's a smaller set, it has to get the next 5 from somewhere else. So it goes to the next game mode, and this is just data to the game. It doesn't say, oh, hey, this block's smaller, I should just stop. It reads from the next one, and you get the light world sprites from post Zelda Rescue in the Dark World.
Now, the reason we went to GT there so that we could go from the Dark World into EG and then make our way over to the Smithy Cave. Now, because we're in Dark World, the dwarf actually is it's actually kind of the same dwarf that you wind up rescuing in the Dark World normally. But it's kind of weird with how the tile sets and everything are going. So he's just kind of a shirt until you grab him, and then he becomes the frog. It's really weird, but it's one of those nice things that allow you to get the tempered sword without having to worry about rescuing the Smithy from the Dark World properly.
Couldn't get him otherwise.
Right. So it is actually a way we kind of collect the green mail in this game. It's kind of the only way you see the green mail sprite not on the inventory, which is kind of weird when you think about it. So since this is 100%, we are going to be grabbing as many, or max percent, excuse me. We are going to be grabbing as many items as we can, which includes getting a flute. And for some reason, the light worlds
that operate differently based on what world you're in.
Yeah, so the flute boy there, who is actually the light world sprite. It's weird to explain, but basically all the sprites that you see on the Dark World Overworld here are from the light world version of that area before you defeat Aghanim.
And
so
for us, they decided to save space and make the sprite for Stumpy and the sprite for the Flute Boy the exact same ID.
And that also has the weird consequence of all these standing heart pieces on the light world actually count for these Dark World screens. So while that heart piece is technically in the position where the race game would be, it actually counts for the digging game. Which is really weird, as well as the fact that we can't actually get the race game heart because we don't have any sprites on the light world overworld in that area. And because we didn't get a boomerang from Escape, we get one from the bombable hut there. It is actually one of those weird chests that actually have 2 contents in it. If you have a boomerang, then it's a 300 rupee chest. If you don't have a boomerang, then it's the red boomerang.
First try!
That is actually incredible luck. Glan has actually gotten worse luck in that chest game than I have before. He's gotten, I think, 31 or something. But first try is amazing luck.
Yeah, due to a bug in the game, it's not actually possible to get it on the first chest unless you go really out of your way, like dying and getting revived by a fairy.
Now again, with the Light World pre-Aga sprites being on the Dark World section, we have to do some weird mirror shenanigans in order to get the bottle off of the merchant. Now, it's kind of funny that there are a lot of things on the overworld which are determined more by Link's overall position more than any kind of sprite, which include activating the flute here, as well as opening up Misery Mire with the Ether Medallion.
Yeah, I remember all the talk for figuring out some annoying tiny bugs for inverted. The flute's just really dumb.
So you see us buying some potions here. We don't use those at all for their intended purpose. Like you saw with the blue potion earlier, we primarily just use potions to skip around on the underworld. Or the overworld if we get blue ones. Here we're doing a nice little upwards teleport to get into the Ice Rod Cave and skip needing to use a bomb.
Oh man, there's the Ice Rod, just like you said. Where'd its head?
And now we're just going to go into a bunch of other little areas here and collect whatever heart pieces are in the town that we can. And then after that, we're going to turn in the smithy, get our tempered sword.
Well, it's mostly glands. We haven't really done anything.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of nice when you think about little things that they programmed as details, such as when you enter an area, the rain will be, or certain areas anyway, the rain will be going until you go downstairs. Kind of a nice little detail that you're further removed from where the rain would be hitting, and so you don't hear it as loudly.
If I had to bet, that's just like laziness.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it laziness, because they actually had to program the muffled sound for entering certain areas, as well as disabling it when you go down some stairs. I mean, they didn't have to do that. Now, with the smithy, we actually have to do a transition there on the overworld, otherwise we don't get our sword. You have to do some sort of transition, either between worlds or between screens on the overworld, in order to advance this side quest a little bit. And now we're going to go into the cave here, do an upward teleport, so that we can get into EG real quick, and go get the Cane of Samaria, arguably the most broken item in the game.
Arguably.
I mean, it's pretty high up there.
So who do you think they mean by Puritan? Because it's not me, I'm Jewish.
I'm not religious, so, I don't know.
Do they mean Glan?
Nah, he's not commenting this. He's running it. And doing pretty well.
He might be talking to himself.
Ah, there we go.
Oh no, the priest is dead.
Nah, he's just tired. I mean, he's also kind of bored. He's waiting for us to bring him Zelda, and we're just kind of ignoring him.
Well, I feel like we shouldn't give in to the drama queen.
In any case, our next stop right now is going to be Skull Woods, and the only way we can really get there is by going to the Dark World up here, because we don't have the gloves or the boots yet. Now, Glan is attempting something a little risky here. Oh, the gloves or the hammer, excuse me. He's doing something a little risky here He's trying to mirror on the same frame as hitting a transition on a border that he can't exactly see. But because he wrapped his screen, that mirror starts to correct his global position and brings him off the mountain pretty quickly.
Chat wants to know why he didn't need the big key for Samaria.
That is because he collected the big key in Hyrule Castle. Because for some reason, when you get the Hyrule Castle big key, it also counts for other dungeons. Or, I guess the big keys count for different dungeon states. Most of them are limited to just a single dungeon, but a couple of them count for multiple. And the multiple being just the cave state or the dungeon that's already in, unless you get a big key while you're in cave state, in which case it also counts for the Desert of Hera, or the Desert and Tower of Hera. It's really weird.
Because keys are tracked with one byte, using each bit as basically a binary flag, and all big keys are given a mask. And the mask that it uses just, happens to give you more stuff when you get keys that you shouldn't be getting.
Now, you may have noticed that there were some weird transitions there. Glan did what we call a North Samaria, which actually wound up loading some data from the room above where he was, which included where the big key is, because that happens to be in the room right above where he did that North Samaria, so it got loaded into the nearby chest, but it also changed how the exits in that room worked. So when he exited to the right, he actually exited one room above where he was, which put him right next to the big chest. And we use that along with other sorts of things to just really speed up going through the dungeons, including what we're going to see just up ahead here. He's going to do another North Samaria, which is going to change the where the exits lead, which is going to be one room above where he normally would be. Now, there is a bit of VRAM corruption when you do this, but it is fixable.
What we call VRAMing.
Yeah, it is fixable if you mirror or save and quit. There are other types of VRAM which are not fixable in that method, and you actually have to hard reset in order to fix it, which we will see in this run later.
I call this medium because it covers everything, but it's fixable. Although, there's a lot going on, but I want to mention that the Samaria also changed the property of some tiles, and the astute eye might have noticed that he dashed right over a pot. It's because it turned into a pit.
Yeah, the Samaria just for some reason creates pits sometimes when you use it in conjunction with certain transitions. And we can use that to our advantage for all kinds of shenanigans, such as wrong warping. But a lot of the times, the pits aren't going to be in recognizable locations. In fact, most of the time they're invisible, so you have to know where they are in order to avoid them.
Speaking of recognizable...
It's okay, it'll be fixed soon enough. Now, we actually have to do a little bit more on the overworld here because we need to go get the mushroom. The mushroom is primarily a light world sprite, so we have to go to the dark world to get it, and this is the only way we can get over here. Now, we do a reset, mostly because we are doing that to fix some of the collision in what we lovingly refer to as Plaid World. That's right, we're headed back into Plaid World to do a major segment of boss killing.
We've already been there.
Well, this is a different area of Plaid.
Oh.
We may have been on the coattails earlier, but now we're on to these upper sleeves. So right now, Glan is wrapping his camera again.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed to say that took me a minute to understand what you meant by sleeves.
Alright, so he's trying to do the same way off the mountain that he was earlier, where he's trying to mirror on that invisible transitional border. He didn't hit it that time, so it wound up hard locking his game, because overworld transitions are very finicky.
I guess chat doesn't know that the priest in the vanilla game, as soon as you have the Master Sword or better, he goes to sleep. And if you talk to him, he disappears.
Yeah, you never really see that, because usually when you get the Master Sword, you think, oh, now I gotta go defeat the wizard. But if you take a pit stop and visit the priest, yeah, they'll just be lying on the ground.
So I'm pretty sure Zelda's gone for the same reason.
So Glan's screen is wrapped a bit here, and he's actually opting to not correct it so that he can place his mirror on a very specific location, one that he can use to enter the Pyramid Fairy area without needing to use the Super Bomb. Because unlocking the Super Bomb is very slow, in that you need both the 5 and 6 crystals, plus rescuing the Smithy to do it. We prefer to just use the mirror. So in here, we're going to get the silver arrows, the gold sword, and between the two, we're going to do a spin attack above the left torch.
I hope we're not. I hope he uses my overworld movement.
I don't know if he knows that. Yeah, he's going to go for the spin in between.
Oh, he definitely knows that. This is another RAM variable. I think it's OAM properties, and it's the property of a specific sprite. Not sprite, sparkle. And it happens to get set to, it's either 58 or hex 58.
But what that spin does is it actually changes a little bit of collision later so that we're able to open a chest to get the hook shot. If we don't do that spin, then the chest is not there for us to actually hit. Which is one of those weird consequences of having the collision be based off of, or the collision and tile properties being based off of RAM values rather than what's actually there.
Yeah, it's hex 58.
So now we're going to do another dungeon fake flute, but this time using a green potion, because that's what works in this particular doorway. And we again hop into water so that we can sync up Link with where the sprites are located, and this is so that we can do a few boss kills. This was actually a major discovery for major glitch modes that allow the exploration glitch, even though going to Plaid in this fashion is not technically the same thing as the exploration glitch. It is just as powerful, so we kind of group it to being the same thing.
It's RAM exploration. I think you're the one who disagrees with that, but it's definitely RAM exploration. Oh, and here's a fun one. Okay, so Link's tile interactions are based on just arbitrary RAM values, but that of sprites, and I guess Ansel as well, are not. So
yeah,
when the bomb explodes near the bombable hole in the attic, it still works.
Which is really nice because that saves us a trip from going upstairs in Thieves Town, which saves about 40 seconds.
Okay, actually, why do we need the hard reset? What exactly is causing that here in this run?
I'm not entirely sure what's causing it, but there is some actually I don't know, because we haven't gotten Bombos yet. Maybe there isn't anything yet and we're resetting unnecessarily, but we do it as a precaution anyway, just to be sure that the collision we get is the same every time. Because otherwise you could wind up getting blocked in a later portion of this segment when trying to get to Landmola's in a hook shot. So it's more a precaution than anything. Now you may see that Vidi dropped a big key as well as the Ether Medallion. Now the game thinks we're in Hyrule Castle currently, and for some reason when you, not for some reason, but whenever you defeat a boss, the game tries to drop a dungeon prize, and normally Hyrule Castle doesn't have one, or rather it's set to the item value 0, which happens to be Ether.
And I'm pretty sure the big key is just sprite caching problems. The sprite for the big key guard has a specific value that says drop a big key when you die. He doesn't kill him. So you go down, and then the sprite in his slot happens to be one of those little tiny eyeballs.
For those asking when we get the crystals, we'll be getting them later. Right now we're just worrying about killing the bosses and getting the Ether and hook shot. Now, we mentioned...
The game marks for rooms, whether or not you've contained a heart piece to track boss kits. And he grabbed a, it was definitely a heart piece. It didn't look like one, but he grabbed it. It was a heart piece. So the game's going to remember that for Viddy's room and for Trinex's room that there's no boss. It's dead.
Now, we mentioned earlier that you have to move in very specific ways in Plaid World, and this is because...
That was really clean.
This is because, for some reason, depending on how you enter certain rooms, it depends on kind of if the room is more than one quadrant tall.
What's he doing Lambo now?
Because he doesn't have to go to Aghanim later.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
So Lanmo is the last boss that we're gonna kill here. But as I was saying, it's weird when you enter certain rooms that are 2 quadrants tall because the camera will not lock when you're going north and south. And if you hit the transitions wrong, then Link will instantly become desynced from where all the sprites are. And since we want to be synced with sprites so that we can kill the bosses, we want to avoid that as much as possible.
You know, here's that 0x58. We opened the hookshot. Hooray.
Yep. That's certainly where the hookshot chest is. So now we're going to do a mirror jump, which is using the mirror on the same frame as a jump, which arms EG, but if you have the Pearl, will actually stop this weird sort of automatic movement that drags Link outside. So now we have EG armed, and we're going to go into Aga Tower. We're not going to go kill Aghanim. We're actually using that to go to Swamp. Now, it may seem like that those two things have nothing to do with each other, but there's a weird door in Hyrule Castle that, for some reason, changes your dungeon ID.
Well, not for some reason. We know why. We just don't really understand the design choice.
Yeah. For some reason, the developers wanted the Hyrule Castle and the Hyrule Sewers to be 2 distinct dungeons, and so they created this door to change it as you transition between the 2. The thing is, this doorway works for any dungeon ID, and in fact takes the dungeon ID and does the exclusive OR operator with the value 2 on that ID.
Is that 2 hex or 2 decimal?
Doesn't matter.
Wow.
But what that ends up doing is it sort of pairs dungeons together, and allows you to sort of link them together via this door. So Aghanim's Tower is linked with Swamp Palace, Thieves' Town is linked with Tower of Hera, Eastern is linked with Desert Palace, and so on and so forth. And we actually have to use that door here in order to get into Swamp from the rear, with Swamp being loaded, so that we can get the crystal. So that we can...
Ever. And there's another weird door.
Yeah, that weird...
I still don't understand it, but because that door leads to a room that isn't adjacent, it completely fixes everything. And you may think, oh, well, that makes sense, but stairs lead to rooms that aren't adjacent, but they don't fix anything. That will never make sense to me, man.
It's another weird design decision that we abuse in our favor. So you see Glan taking some damage here. He actually has to take a death with a fairy that he caught earlier on the same, in order to perform fake flippers right here. If he hops up here, you'll see him land in water, but die while he's sort of in that, those 7 or 8 frames between when the game decides to kick you back to land. And doing so allows us to fake flipper, but through the ground.
Yep, and the game knows he has flippers, or knows he doesn't have flippers, but it doesn't actually care. It just assumes, okay, you're over water, so you know you died. You must have had flippers. So it just makes assumptions. So it knows you don't have it, but it doesn't check and try to kick you out. It doesn't expect that.
So now we see what heavy VRAM looks like. This is not fixable unless you reset. So right now our camera is broken, which we use to lure Argus to the top, and that takes all of his puffs off screen, and as soon as all the puffs are off screen, they're considered dead, so Argus just immediately enters phase 2, and we can go and kill him very quickly that way.
Oh, I wouldn't call that immediately. I'll show you immediately later.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't go for the 0 cycle, but it's I think only about 6 seconds slower this way.
I don't know, if I'm allowed to get into task hype, the task gets a -1 cycle.
But now we have the Swamp Crystal, as well as Argus being killed.
It looks like a... You know what? This marathon needs a game. Let's play... What the heck is that? And what do you guys see in this mess?
It's like a Rorschach blot test.
I think like the blue at the top, it looks kind of like a cannonball shooter.
Now, of course, when we reset, we have to save and quit first, but there's actually a couple of things we want to do first before we fix everything. There's a heart piece in the light world at the water gate here where you drain the water, but it happens to be in the dark world.
There it is. Look, it's jumping up and down. There it is.
No, that's not it. That's it right there. But there's another heart piece we want to get real quick, which is the floating island. Now, he has to be very careful with the clip that he does here. If he misses it, then he's going to have to come later from the actual dark world to collect it.
Those monsters are really scary looking.
Now, he's doing a downward teleport here without really any good visual cues, so that's pretty impressive. As well as lining up exactly where he wants to be so that when he hops down, he lands right on the heart piece.
If you mess that up, I actually found a bomb jump for it.
Yeah. But getting that heart piece is not easy. Especially when you can't see what you're doing.
Oh boy, more potions.
Yeah, we're not quite done with those yet.
There's a bit of a drinking problem.
Alright, so now we're headed to Palace of Darkness. Which is kind of strange when you consider the route. A lot of the times you want to get the hammer as early as possible because that gives you decent access to the Dark World. But since we always wind up starting at the Sanctuary, that doesn't actually help us too much here. So we decide to put off hammer for as late as we can.
Here's a glitch you'll see, what, 20 times?
Bomb clips?
Well, I meant specifically Kiki Skip, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Kiki Skip is one of those things that have been known forever, but up until recently, haven't really had easy ways of doing it. It was only within the last year or so that we discovered bomb clips, as well as other methods of doing this particular clip. Now, the game thinks he's in a cave right now, despite being in a room that's in pod. And one of the consequences of being in a cave is that your key count is set to -1, which allows you to open doors because the game only cares if your key count value is 0. In which case, if it isn't 0, then it subtracts 1 from your key count and opens the door. Now, the key counter is an 8-bit
overflow or underflow.
Yeah, the key counter is an 8-bit value, and starting from -1 means it's actually starting at 255. So we effectively would have 255 keys. But there aren't even that many key doors in the game. So now you're going to see a frame-perfect death while simultaneously falling in a hole. And what this does is it writes certain values of data into the room that he's falling to, which happens to include a locked door that he opened as he entered that room. So he doesn't have to get an extra key to go up the stairs here. And this allows him to get the big key with much quicker than usual.
Yeah, chat pointing out that not that good at this game. He almost died to those turtles. I don't think we even need to explain this next one.
What, hammer jump? It's a rail clip combined with a bomb jump. Simple, easy. Just happens to be a double pixel perfect bomb jump. Alright, so now we have Hammer, and now we can go up and go kill Helmasaur. We actually don't need any other keys, because we're going to use what we call a mirror door. Now, a mirror door is just like any other YBA, which I don't know if you went over that, but that stands for Yuzuhara Bottle Adventure. Those are basically all the potion glitches that we've been using so far. But we can kind of mimic that with the mirror, provided we can use the mirror while in a doorway. And that can only happen if we can get Link to use items in a doorway. Now, the primary method of doing that is by using a carryable object like a bomb or the Samaria block while up there, or by walking into the door frame perpendicular to the direction of the doorway. We're going to use bombs here because that's the only way we can get deep enough into this door that automatically moves Link. So we're going to use the mirror on the same frame as a transition, which kind of looks like it's hard looking the game, but it isn't. It's actually using the same timer that initiates when you defeat Ganon to open up the door to the Triforce. But the timer is a bit longer, depending on how far down the EG map you are. And
another one of those things. It's like, why did they do this?
I think it's not necessarily a conscious decision.
Specifically the part where your coordinates are stored temporarily.
Oh yeah, and we actually get that temporary coordinate stored by picking up a pot in the same room. If we didn't do that, then the mirror door would always take something like 16 to 18 minutes. Just because the timer that it uses is a 2-byte timer and counts down 1 per frame. But thanks to that mirror door, we get to skip the cutscene where you shoot the statue with an arrow, as well as a few rooms down below that are in the dark. So, we prefer doing that when we can.
Uh-oh. Chat pointing out that that wasn't either. Poor Josh.
Now, once we're done with Palace of Darkness, we're actually going to go back into Eastern Palace and utilize the big key that we get from...
Are you sure?
Well, he's going to arm EG first, which is one of those weird things that happens in this room in particular. Arming EG is literally just an interrupted jump. And it's interrupted in this room because you never actually land in the same room. Because you're jumping into a void, it doesn't complete the jump and thus arms what we lovingly refer to as EG. Now, you normally don't see this in a normal playthrough because there's another variable that's involved that we call EG strength. And many of the rooms in Pod have weak EG strength, which means when you try to activate it, it doesn't go anywhere. But if you take it to a room that sets it to strong, then you can activate your EG and go under the floor. Now we're doing this from Eastern to use the big key from there, so we can head into Thieves Town and go kill Blind, as well as get the mitts and open up other locks and such that happen to be in the dungeon.
Sorry, I'm just reading chat.
Now, one interesting thing is when you're in a boss room and you collect a heart container, in the Dark World boss rooms, the door doesn't reopen. And we already have the dungeon prize for Eastern, so if we're going to kill Blind in this segment, we have to do something else in order to exit that room. Thankfully, the cutscene that kind of plays right before the blind fight starts can be manipulated with other submodes, such as using different menus. And for some reason, this interrupts whether or not the door closes.
If Glan likes FSG at all, he will use the map. But if he wants to freak chat out, he'll use select. If he wants to make us question everything he does, he'll use a potion.
I don't think he's going to use a potion. Those things are too valuable and waste too much time to get.
I think dashing there is not a smart idea because that basically zeroes the chance of seeing that little guy clip into the wall.
What, the little slime?
Yeah. Josh, are you sure you didn't? I bet we could dig up an old PB.
So here we go. We're going to interrupt the cutscene with the select menu as Glan is using, which interrupts the door from closing, but also messes up the palette. I'm not entirely sure why. Do you know why?
I think it's because unlike map or potion, that there's some VRAM transfer going on when you open the select menu.
I guess that makes sense because it tends to change the same values that happen when you load into a new super tile. Anyway, we kill Blind here so that we can say that we've killed him. And now we're going to do a YBA here to go all the way up to GT.
And now Blind is undead.
Yeah, technically he is, but we don't really care. We already have his heart container. But we're going to GT so that we can open up this big chest and get the red mail. And now we're going to do a Samaria glitch to change how the rail collision is so we can jump through it and jump into a void. But this Samaria glitch also changes another temporary value, which is whether or not the falling pits damage Link. Normally they do, but the room above him doesn't have that same property. So when he falls in the hole, it takes him to some destination that is hard-coded by the game. We can't change this destination, but we can abuse it in order to get to, well, Ice Palace. Now, he has to mirror there because he technically came from the Light World. The game still thought he was in Light World. And there's some weirdness with how the game drops the dungeon prizes when you're in a world different than what you would expect for the dungeon.
Yeah, I have no idea why, actually.
It has to do with the dungeon prizes being stored in a byte, I think, based on the world. Or it checks it against the world for some reason. I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Dumb bitmask again.
Kind of the same thing as the big keys, I imagine.
I should start mentioning bitmasks more, because they just ruin a lot of things in this game.
Ruin, or do they make it better so that we can exploit it?
Both.
So, for the most part, the rest of this dungeon is rather normal. We kind of went through all the glitchy stuff there. One thing we didn't really mention is that there are certain rooms which automatically kick Link out of EG, and
wow. Glan not even using the new tech discovered last night or this morning? What was that?
This morning.
Oh, God.
I don't think he had time to practice it. But nonetheless, rooms that kick you out of EG, there's a few of them. the moving walls, such as the one in Pod, Mire, and Desert, or the full room conveyors like Ice Palace and Mothula, they have weird layer properties to them that kind of sandwich them together and immediately just kick Link out of EG automatically.
I think it's basically because they're 2 layers. They look like one.
Yeah, which makes sense, especially when you consider Mothula's room, where you have the stationary spikes and the conveyor floor.
That was a nice crystal catch.
So now that we've done a bunch of dungeon delving, we've got to go and collect a few things that we've left scattered around the world. A lot of heart pieces and half magic and the cape and other things. We're going to do some of that now.
Chat pointing out that we can't save Zelda. Well, actually, Zelda's dead now.
Is she?
Yeah, doesn't she disappear when you have a master sword or higher?
Even from the jail cell and escape?
Yeah, that's why. What was it? What was I gonna say? Something else. That's why ZGA is a pain in the butt.
Uh-oh. Glan kind of messed up that little setup there to clip down. Ideally, what you want to do is have spin speed armed and then walk down the slope, which sets your subpixel to a particular value that lets you jump right where you want to be.
Subpixels are dumb. They're not even real subpixels.
Yeah, I know, it's really a velocity sort of variable, but it's more used in pixel positioning, and having a correct one is important for several things.
Wow, I thought you said Catfish was gone.
That's not catfish. It's an imposter.
I'm pretty sure that was Catfish.
It's an imposter. It's actually a vulture.
I don't like the way you're talking about Catfish.
It's not catfish! You'll see him flutter away here. Right? Oh, nope, he's just going to ignore. He's just going to ignore Glan there.
Right, a fake flute that actually works.
Yeah, this one is, the fake flute does actually work properly on the overworld, even if you're in the dark world. So, we use that so that we can get to the witch's hut here. Now, even though the witch is right there, that you can kind of see her stirring the left half of Catfish, we can't actually talk to her unless we clip up into the house like that.
The Catfish doesn't just give you Quake, it also gives you Heart Piece and... It's nice.
But we don't get to see the real Catfish. Yes, Josh, you should learn this category. It's pretty awesome. It doesn't have digging game. That is the main reason you should learn this.
It's still a chess game.
Yeah, but that's more manageable, in my opinion. Anyway, we're going to do another fake flute here and head to Kakariko so we can head over to the hammer pegs pretty much as quick as we can.
I think we should reroute hammer pegs differently so that it completes a heart piece. That would save like 15 frames or something.
We already rerouted it to be here, so that we can abuse it with other things.
He's not going for a medallion, cancel. Dang.
Oh no, he has the real powder. He doesn't have to fake it anymore.
You can fake real powder.
He can, but he has too much magic.
Now it is even more magic.
Yeah, so it's even harder to do fake powder or anything like that.
Shame that all the glitches are like thrown at once. It's impossible to explain a glitch without neglecting another. But then you have all this downtime and nothing's going on. There's nothing to explain.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be in the Dark World here because the Light World sprites are here, which includes the Bombos tablet. Actually, that's one interesting thing about this game, is that the...
Oh my god, look at that catfish.
One interesting thing about this game is the Ether Medallion is actually a hard-coded value for that screen, for the tablet being up there. For every other screen, if you use the Book of Medora on a tablet, it gives you the Bombos Medallion.
Also, if you went in front of Meyer and used the book, you would learn about the Master Sword.
Yeah, one of the weird things about where it grabs the text from. Yeah, it's just really interesting that for some reason Bombos Medallion is the default medallion, but Ether is the hard-coded one, despite Ether actually being required to complete the game, and Bombos isn't.
And Ether being the default item 0.
Yeah, which is extremely convenient for Hyrule Castle.
This game doesn't make any sense.
It has its own rules. Once you understand the rules, it sort of makes sense, but
no,
you have to understand the rules first.
Zelda stops talking when you talk to Uncle.
All right, so now we have a bunch of those heart pieces and such collected. Now we've got to go and clean up all those dungeons that we kind of skipped through. We defeated the bosses, but we don't have the crystals for them yet. This includes Mire, Desert, T-Rock, Thieves Town. We still have to do a couple of other things, but for the most part, we do need to go and get those crystals. We're actually going to start by finishing off Tower of Hera here. And we're going to use a bomb clip to go right into EG. We're going to attempt to use a bomb clip. There we go.
No one agrees, but this is definitely semi-EG, because it's not really EG. And I mean, come on, semi-EG, that's a good term. It just got used wrong to begin with.
No, this is definitely EG there. He's going out of bounds and under the floor.
You're not under a floor, you're behind a wall. The floor is on the same layer as you.
You know, Glenn, you didn't even have to spin the second time there. You could just slash him twice with Gold Sword. But that's probably just muscle memory from other things. So, as I had mentioned earlier, the sewer door that we use to change dungeon IDs on the fly links a couple of dungeons together, and one of those pairs is the Tower of Hera dungeon. Now, first we're going to go collect the Cane of Birna, as well as this heart piece over here, which you would normally find at the Light World, but this is Max Rain. I'm gonna go get the Cane of Birna, then go back into Tower of Hera. Actually, wait. Yeah, we're gonna do it that way. I was trying to remember when we get Floating Heart Piece, or Floating Island Heart Piece, but that's a little later. All right, so now we're going to go back into Tower of Hera so that we can use the sewer door and get a dungeon prize from the dungeon that is linked with Tower of Hera, which happens to be Thieves' Town. Now, you're going to love this, FMP. We actually wind up setting a variable by going through an empty super tile, one that you're very familiar with.
Ooh. Which one? There's 4, technically.
You hear that jingle? That set a value down to 4, one that we use for
4?
Super Tile West Samarias.
That shouldn't set it to 4.
It does.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that jingle in the empty room sets it to 4 for I have no idea.
This doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it's technically a subtile transition, in a sense.
I guess it's because no door is actually closing.
But anyway, we have this variable set to 4, and so now we go into the lobby here of the castle, do a super tile West Samaria, so that we can despawn the sprites, which include the shelf in front of the throne door, which is the linking doorway between castle and sewers. And that's the one that changes our dungeon ID. So we use the super tile West Samaria to despawn the sprites.
Oh man, they're asking what a West Samaria is. I think I should just hand them that page.
So now we're going to go ahead and head over to a room where we've already defeated the boss. And we're going to choose Vitreous because that's actually closest to where we are when we're out of bounds like this. Now, since Vidi is already defeated and we have the Thieves' Town dungeon loaded, the crystal that drops is the one for Thieves' Town. But since we are in Vidi's boss room, the game kicks us out in front of Meyer instead. The game has weird rules.
I mean, this one's actually pretty consistent. It knows what room you're in. So it's like, okay, this is this room for this dungeon. One of the things that does make sense.
It's still really weird.
Which is why it doesn't make sense.
But yeah, there's a lot of manipulating of the dungeon ID and such when you're doing all sorts of things with big keys or crystals. We entered Hera normally, and then went through the sewer door to change the dungeon ID to Thieves' Town, then went to Vitreous to get the Thieves' Town crystal, but getting it from Vitreous's boss tile kicks you out at Meyer, is kind of the shortest way I can explain that. Now, we have to mirror here because of the pendant crystal conflicts that happen when you're in a fake world. Although I think he's getting the desert pendant first, using basically the same thing, but instead of going through the sewer door, we're just going to go straight from desert to Vitreous while arming EG along the way by jumping into this pit.
Hooray! We got it.
Getting these pendants and crystals are actually kind of difficult when you can't see exactly where a link is. A lot of times you have to come up with your own visual cue or timing cue based on some movement plus slashes.
That's the great thing about tassing. You shut off layer 2.
Now this is the only time where we purposefully get rid of the rain. It could be skipped, but I really don't feel like rerouting it for that, because we're still technically in the rain state. And the rain is still technically everywhere else on the overworld, just not the Mire overworld anymore.
It removes a lot of stuff. Like that removes the layer 1 on Death Mountain. Although that's not rain, that's like a firestorm.
Well, depending on how you enter Death Mountain, it could be Blood Rain. Or maybe not Blood Rain, but Red Rain.
Oh no, he skipped the crystal.
No, we need EG first.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised. This is the guy who almost died to turtles.
The reason you can use the mirror in Fake Dark World is because I guess, I don't know the exact reason, but I guess it's because it cares about which overworld screen is technically loaded at the time, not where...
Yeah, Apathy's correct. Just blame everything on bitmasks.
Yeah, it's got to be something with the bitmasks, because you can use the mirror in Fake Dark... You can use the mirror in Fake Dark World, but you can't use it in Fake Light World. But you can use the flute normally in Fake Light World, which keeps you in Fake Light World, and you can use that to your advantage in certain ways, and earlier versions of that route did actually use that, but instead we opted for a Fake Flute rather than Fake Light World.
Yeah, he's doing this.
I'm still not convinced that this saves time, RTA.
I am.
I mean, I haven't tested it for myself, but...
I think... Well, they found out that if you bonk the bottom wall, which you need to do anyways, it perfectly lines up with the crystal.
I think he moved a little bit too far to the left or right. And so the crystal didn't land right on top of him. There we go. So now we have...
EG?
Yes, this is actually EG. At this point, we have all of the crystals and pendants. Now we're a couple of heart pieces short, and we still need to get the mirror shield. Otherwise, we have everything we can possibly get without advancing the game past the rain state.
As far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, there could be later discoveries which break this category wide open again, but I'm doubtful we'll find it.
I just discovered something. This doesn't get arrow upgrades.
No, we're not doing that.
I can really call it max percent.
Would be better if we called it max inventory.
Yes.
Fine, you're a mod on leaderboards, you can change it. In any case, we have to go collect the heart piece up on top of that floating ledge, but the easiest way to clip it is actually by wrapping the screen from the very bottom down here.
Oh yeah, that reminds me, I finally found out the good inputs to get that with the spin speed. What you want to do is you want to hold right after the fake flipper. That took me like an hour to figure out. I'm just proud of myself, but I never told anyone.
Well, unfortunately, the clip didn't go quite well for Glan, and he's going to have to do some other method of getting to the floating island. And he has to do it in the Dark World, otherwise he can't get the heart piece.
Boy, more mirror wraps. still wonder why mirror wraps actually, break everything like that.
I think it has to do something with just how the transition is interpreted, because we can get the same sort of scroll without using mirror wraps. But it depends on jumping over the transitional borders. So now we're headed into Mimic Cave. This is the last heart piece, and will get us cleanly to 19 hearts, which is currently the maximum number that we can get. Which was so nice when we finally were able to get the Lumberjack heart piece, because it was stuck at 18 3/4 for so long.
Here's the last item.
Yeah, we do a Samari glitch similar to the one that we did in Skullwoods to load the chest with a big key. And then we mirror to reset the dungeon and use that big key to get the mirror shield. So the only things we have left are to defeat Aghanim 2 and Ganon. Those are the only two things that we can do without advancing the game state any further. Now we're doing a bunch of weird camera shenanigans here, combined with that North Samaria, so that we can fall in a precise location in this room, which then takes us right to Aghanim 2.
With rainbows, because the game's expecting it's kind of expecting like what do you call it? Expecting a transparency layer here, so all the palettes are shifted, but it's never, since the room's not entered properly, it doesn't really get to tell the game to update where to look at palettes. So there's this little rainbow at the top, which is where we'll normally look for Link's palette. Who is it? I think Taj's door glitched. There's nothing fun about this fight. It's boring. This is the most riveting gameplay ever. Yes, Ganon's mom did make him that necklace. She owns a jewelry shop, which is really popular with other Gerudos. Don't say good game yet, guys. He hasn't mastered the Triforce text. Okay, now I can say GG. I think we just have to enjoy these credits.
With
It's
the
so rainy.
yeah, the rain in the background, the rain noise.
And then there's that one maiden. It's just like shinier than everyone else. Ghost walls in the sanctuary. The priest decided to wake up.
Yeah, need to get some reading done.
They also remodeled. Dude doesn't have a chest anymore there.
Well, I mean, everything that was in it is gone. Why have it out on display anymore?
I thought the chest really brought the room together.
In any case, I hope you all enjoyed Max Rain. This category has kind of existed for a while. I believe ACMLM was the first to ever do a run that tried to collect as many things as possible in the rain. And then I took a stab at routing it around the same time that the 100% all heart pieces category was being routed for RTA. And then we found out how to get the Lumberjack heart piece thanks to Plaid World. And since then, Glan and I kind of worked together to refine this route as much as we can. So it's been fun developing this category.
I like how it's not raining at Zora.
Yeah, the one place with all the water.
This place has water.
Well, it has more water than here.
Everyone just look at the lumberjack faces. This is the best face in the game. More shiny sprites. Like, why do they get to be shiny? I mean, I know why they're shinier. It's not really fair.
All right, so should we go ahead and talk about what we have next on the docket?
What's a docket? Look at that! Look at that! Look at that guy's head. It's so shiny. Actually, his head's dark.
What I mean is the run we have next in the schedule. I believe that's your most recent task, the Delete Ganon.
Yes. Well, define recent. Like if
Well,
we're going to like time from now, then the most recent task is going to be the one later.
Oh, that's true. That one's coming up later, but that one isn't complete yet.
Yeah, but more recent technically. Yes, you heard him right. Delete Ganon.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one.
I'm guessing you're sticking around. Also, glad no one asked questions. Why is it not raining on Death Mountain? Well, if you look, we're above the clouds. And rain comes from clouds.
And there's obviously a canopy in Lost Woods, so no rain there either. That makes it all the way down.
How do you delete Ganon? Well, you'll see.
It's actually a pretty recent discovery in terms of making sure it's actually possible.
I don't know.
I think
I had the idea for months, so it's just like it never felt like trying it.
Yeah. I think it was just that you verified that it actually happens, and then we started looking for ways to actually perform it.
Well, this one's. Why are some runners pedantic?
We have to be if we want to explain things.
But if you want pedantic, I'm going to make everyone read the entire submission text for the 100% before anyone gets to watch it.
definitely helps with understanding what's going on in that task, although a lot of it is it helps if you have an understanding of the glitches involved, which the submission text does help to explain.
If you don't read that entire, I think it's like 70 kilobytes. Okay, not the entire thing. You can skip the decision. Spoilers, it was accepted.
Congrats, by the way. But before we get to that, we have a couple of other things in between. We are setting up the delete Ganon tasks right now.
Also, if you want pedantic, look at under speed gaming. That says speed gaming 2 to 6. It's using a hyphen there. When typographically, it should be using an en dash. Basically, this means 2-6. That doesn't make sense. I think that was too pedantic. Todd's gone.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, they removed your name.
That's okay. I'll stick around anyway.
This one's fun because this one you get to see extra glitches.
Yeah, I haven't seen this new route of yours for it, so I'm interested to see how you actually wind up doing the full deletion.
Technically doable real time.
I'll be the judge of
Don't try
that.
to do it real time. The only I showed it to Yuzu just cause, and Fiesel probably hasn't seen it, but he obviously has access to the video. Yeah, things are gonna be. This is a task. This is for like 90% of it. It's optimized to the best of my ability. A couple places where I just don't. It's just too much of a pain.
So, for those who don't know, we actually wind up deleting Ganon through what we call manipulating the SRAM.
Okay, so I think we should just mention that stuff. If you notice Link moving back and forth, that's a lot like pumping, but you can press up and down or left and right at the same time to also change your subpixel. You're gonna see a lot of like facing a door or a tight tile and just moving really fast. That's called pixel porting, which is no, it's SRAM. The guy saying no, not SRAM. The first thing we're going to do is we're gonna get to Thieves Town. This is yeah, just like that. It's you snap near the boundary and it just changes the door behavior. I think it's a lot like Quadrant Glitch, and it seems to behave a lot. I think it's closer to Mirror Door. Grab one bomb, and listen here. Yeah, we throw a pot, and we exit so fast that the pot isn't finished yet, and the guy just dies. Went up through there to fix the camera. You just walk through the stairs. Yeah, a lot goes on at the very beginning of this.
I'm curious how you thought this was RTA possible.
Oh, okay. Now, okay, you do have to get to Thieves Town slightly. You do have to get a different big key, but it is the stuff after this is all technically RTA viable. Not viable, possible.
Okay.
This is a really weird one because right there, I think I got like pixels of movement from snapping into the door.
Okay, so the important part is that you grabbed a big key that will count for some other dungeon later.
Yeah, for Meyer, we're getting Kane.
Okay. Okay, so that...
I just love being able to walk through the door like that.
Yeah, and then using the falling into the pit to just reset back down where you entered from. I love that.
Yeah, and then I actually managed to get rid of that small magic there, because here's like, it's supported. Yeah, that sword slash is actually, for some reason, important. And right there, I really like that get hit to throw the pot early. I'm holding the pot for exactly 1 frame that we're gonna need. And I mean, you probably figured it out. We're gonna death hole. That bumper saves like 40 frames.
Okay, so...
I just love this.
Alright, so we're killing...
Ourselves.
Okay.
So
and
what
then
that did is, now it thinks we're in the room below for data, but we're still up here, so when we kill Mulder, we're going to grab his heart, and it's gonna set the value for boss being dead to the room below.
Another consequence of that death hole... yeah, I just want to mention real quick, one other consequence of the death hole is that it actually moves Link up from where he died, which is why he was back on the platform where Moldorm was, and could continue fighting him.
I don't exactly know how long. And this was something that I just found out during the task. Just resync doing that. It was so cool.
Okay.
And now, well, we have a few more death holes coming up. So the thing is, we can't bomb ourselves. Enemies can hurt us, but we can't hurt ourselves. There we go.
Okay, I guess you could time that with a fire bar there, which is technically RTA viable.
But by technically, I mean, it could be done without up, down, left, right, but you'd be a fool to try it. This one, we do actually have to leave because the room is nowhere near it on the EG map. So we leave, we reset the dungeon. And this is where, like, okay, if you thought there was any chance of technical RTA viability, here's where that just goes away.
Alright.
This death hole's a massive pain.
Are you using the Beetles for it, or the Moldorm?
I'm using the Kadongo. It's just watch this guy.
Oh, you have to lure him that way? Oh, man.
Yeah. So, many of the bombs here because we don't want any VRAM corruption here. And we're going to do a bomb jump. It doesn't hurt us.
Right, because...
that star switch was intentional. It prevents VRAM. Okay, so what that did is brought it to the room you saw us in, that room in Hera. And then after that, those Samaria glitches, now the boss dead flag is in Hyrule, is in the entrance to Hyrule Castle.
Okay. So now you bring it over to the side somehow, or?
Yeah, with the West Samaria.
Okay. And then from there you start doing North Samaria glitches to bring it together?
Yeah, and then here's a really cool one. That, it puts you on the wrong layer, and then you can actually do these normally task-only Samaria glitches RTA. I just think that's so cool.
Huh.
And now the boss dead flag is in Ganon.
Alright, and just so people know, the boss gets despawned it doesn't spawn if the boss defeated flag is written there, so Ganon will not spawn when you get there.
You guys would also need a potion, because you can't do that cool tech.
Yeah. So when you fall in, Ganon's dead or gone.
He's dead. He's deleted.
Huh. Okay, other than the Kodongo, then yeah, this is relatively viable RTA.
I had some trouble with the Kodongo at one point, and there was a Moldworm up there, and he kept hitting me. I was like, stop, I'm trying to kill myself differently. So, might have been possible, but I don't want to deal with that. That's one of the places where I didn't do optimization as much as I could have. And the other was Moldworm, just because it's annoying.
So one of the funny things about deleting Ganon is it's actually more effective of getting rid of Ganon for good than killing him, as some are pointing out in chat there. Since the boss defeated flag is an SRAM value that never gets set normally in the Ganon room, it's not permanent when you defeat him through regular play, but when you delete him, it is saved to SRAM and thus will persist through resets and everything. So that's... Huh, that was kind of wild.
Yeah, when I took upon redoing it, I was expecting 12 minutes, maybe. That was about 7 minutes of gameplay. So more than 10% of that task was the Triforce text.
All right, so up next we have the Light World boss RTAs. Glan's going to be running those as well. It's going to be a series of 4 runs where he has to defeat each of the Light World bosses, starting from a fresh save file as quickly as he can.
I might as well stick around. I like Glan mode. Blammo RTA is my little baby. I didn't create it, but I adopted it.
Yeah, you definitely saved, what, 30% of the category time on it, at least? Through one little thing?
Technically, it was Yuzu, because he had the idea.
But you adapted it for this.
I was doing all sorts of dumb stuff to get the Lambo for the task. Yuzu was like, why are you doing that? Why aren't you just doing this? And we were like, you know you can skip the torch cutscene. I was like, what? How?
And we'll get into how you do that in a bit here. We first have to get through Armos RTA.
Yeah, one weird trick that category routers hate.
No, I love it. And in fact, I got to use sort of the same thing for some of the other boss RTAs, which sadly aren't part of this marathon, but they are decidedly not marathon safe. They are very hard to
It also improved
finish.
max keys.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to do with Ether and Tempered sorted in that category now. That was. Oh, I also removed the tile room. That stinks. So do I, Espeon, so do I. What do I do with Ether?
All right. So a lot of these boss RTAs are going to be using EG. Actually, the first one doesn't, but we'll get into how it's all performed in a moment. So every single one of these is going to start with Uncle leaving the house. Of course, since we're starting from a fresh file. But for Armos RTA, we don't even need to get a sword. We can actually go complete the dungeon as is, from the word go, although it's advised that you do grab the lamp from Link's house. It's technically possible to do without, but really tried to save those 2 or 3 seconds yet.
Maybe FSG will. Oh, poor ACM.
So Glan is going to do a clip that we saw at, near the beginning of the Max Rain run, which is where he kind of goes into the slope a little bit, then goes up 5 pixels, or up left 5 pixels, then as far in as he can go before popping out, then up left 1 pixel, and then he downward teleports. This lets him skip these gold guards right around here.
Without spending 40 hours.
Yeah, and mashing A for that long as well. So we get to skip those gold guards and go directly over to Eastern Palace.
This is
There is
almost percent rain.
There is a small time save you could do if you clip around the bottom of this screen, which kind of wraps Link up around toward the entrance through a couple of hops, but it's hard to do quickly enough for it to actually save time.
And it saves less time in these categories because there's no Armos statue blocking the way.
So the objective for this run right now is just to kill Armos as fast as possible, and the timing will stop for this category when he collects the pendant. Which is nice because there's a fun little glitch with the Zelda message that you just saw Glan mash through there. If you get the Zelda message during the fanfare of picking up the pendant, then Link will get stuck in a state of perpetually celebration.
That sounds like a good thing.
Well, unfortunately, the only way out is to reset, and since there's no save points that he's hit yet, then it just resets the entire file, and you start back in Link's bed without any progress.
So basically you're saying you can hit the reset button without even pressing save and quit.
Well, the save and quit doesn't... The save and quit wouldn't do anything. It doesn't actually save your data yet.
Yeah, so you just hit the reset button. That saved quite a bit of time.
Well, except for the time that you spent to go kill Armos.
Well, yeah, but... This is basically just, you know, now it's pretty much NMG.
It's similar, yeah, because you don't need to use your sword much in NMG in any case. There is one change. When you get to the room with the 2 red Igors, you do have to use a different strat there, because normally you'd want to spin attack, but since we don't have a sword, we gotta use the bow instead, since it's our only means of damaging anything at this point. Well, once we get it anyway.
Chat pointing out that, yeah, Zelda's just shut up. I wonder how much time it actually costs. Never bothered timing it. Much better cannonball RNG there.
Yeah, rather than get the 3 straight up at the worst position like before. Alright, so here's the room where you would want to be able to spin attack. Instead, you gotta massacre the popos using the bow as quickly as you can. Alright, getting a few safety arrows here for the Armos fight. Oh, well, I guess we're not going to get the hard lock with the pendant anymore.
Maybe this kill just goes really bad.
It'd have to go extraordinarily bad, because it takes a full minute of uninterrupted play between the Zelda texts, not including the transitions between rooms. And there we go. That's Armos RTA.
Knock, knock. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting Zelda.
She's not available right now.
Come on, you ruined the joke.
So from there, we're going to move on to Lanmo RTA, which is quite a bit different from that one.
Yeah, I like this one.
Now, in this one, we collect the lamp, but only for a visual cue. I'm not entirely sure if anyone would want to try to do this without the lamp.
You probably could with a, like, if you just use some sort of rhythm.
Maybe.
I don't know, set up a metronome and find out when to transition. Yeah, get pee-pee on it.
So for the most part, we're kind of starting the same. We do wind up getting the sword this time, because there aren't really any other weapons that we can get this quickly. And then we're going to enter the castle and do a mid-air saving quit, I think. Unless Glan is going to go for a stair clip.
No, he said he's doing marathon safe.
Alright. So he's going to do a mid-air saving quit, which arms EG.
For the record, the best time in this category ever is 4:20.
I mean, I think that can go lower, but that's the current best time, yes.
It's the best time forever. All future runs will be rejected.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Which you do.
I know. So now with that EG armed, we're going to use that to go over to Desert, but first we have to rearm it by jumping into the void in the room below here. So now we have EG armed again, but now we're in EG, which is really useful. And now we're going to use a property of the rooms with moving walls in them, because they have the 2 layers basically synchronized with each other there, or sandwiched together, whatever you want to call it. It kicks Link out of EG. So now we're in the back half of Desert, with our EG still armed, and now he has to make it out of the Desert Dungeon without getting hit, otherwise he'll lose that armed EG. Now that property with the moving walls is only applicable if the wall has not been moved yet.
Yes. And the reason why we're leaving is because you have to get the pendant.
Yeah,
and we do not want either.
Yeah, we do need the pendant in order to complete the category fully, and if you collected either, the door to the Landmo boss room would not reopen, and you would be stuck and have to EG over to desert again. So it's faster to do it this way. So now we're going to use... Yeah, go ahead.
Transitioning on a very specific Y pixel range, so that when we get to the moving wall, we can press down and kick Link upwards to hit the transition trigger. And
now we're in the Landmo fight.
It's just like the bulk of the category. The rest is easy. This reminds me a lot of Hylian Legacy. Especially when, like, you know, I was just doing a casual playthrough and I didn't really know it. I had to do Eastern Palace like 20 times.
And that's Landmo RTA.
Yes.
So that's 2 out of 4 down. So now we move on to Moldorm RTA, which is somewhat similar, except for the method of... Actually, it's extremely similar to Landmo at this point. Where we have to arm EG, get over to the dungeon, reload it, and get back into EG and use a moving wall room to kick Link further along into the dungeon. At least I think that's the method Glan is going to go for this time. He might just try to hop into the fairy pot in the Hera lobby, though.
It's not a pot, it's a brazier.
It's a really large pot.
No one has a total time of 420, just Landmo, the important one. Smoke worms every day.
No, nothing special would happen if he gets knocked off the Moldorm platform, because he would have...
No, something special would happen. Chat would meme it up.
Ah, of course.
You're right, that's not special. This marathon has 0 memes. Oh wait, no, we do have a rando.
Well, I'm going to leave that to you to dissuade memeing during that.
Well, a meme is it's an idea that spreads itself and adapts over time. Does that not describe the idea of rando?
Well, I mean, that's such a generic definition that it could apply to almost anything.
That's the original definition by Richard Dawkins himself.
I understand that, but it's rather vague when there's a more colloquially accepted definition that pertains to specific, I guess, jokes.
Oh, right. Well, nowadays meme just means something on the internet.
I'm not entirely sure if Glan meant to hop into the void twice there. I think he did, but I don't know.
I think he just wants to beep. Yeah, don't forget on the poll. Don't forget on the poll. That was a good sentence. Don't forget to vote on the poll.
Yeah, Glan, you're gonna have to clip or something, or hope for a heart drop, I think.
Well, if we didn't bicker over pointless semantics, what were we talking about?
Oh, okay, so it didn't kill him. Good. Alright, so he's getting onto a very precise pixel here to use the Meyer Torch Room to kick down and go right into the fairy room in Hera.
I guess
Which
you
is
could
where
all
the...
get ferried anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically getting to that room, but going south is slightly faster, as we found out a day or so ago.
No,
And
I
so
mean,
now we
they'd
fight
take
Uldorm.
advantage. Man, the speed gaming bot really wants me to join the speed gaming commentary server.
And that's Uldorm RTA. And finally, for our last Light World boss, we have Aghanim 1.
The worst.
Yeah, this is actually the worst one. This is my least favorite of all of the... Actually, Moth might actually be slightly worse as a boss RTA. But Aghanim is pretty far up there. For this one, we actually don't care what dungeon is loaded at the time, so we can just use EG to go right to the fight, or as close as we can to it. For this one, the only gear we need is the sword.
Nope, he doesn't drop either. He does his little spinny spin.
To answer FSG in chat, no, you can't actually quadrant glitch to Aga because using a quadrant glitch will likely despawn you from, or it immediately desyncs you from sprites. So I don't believe there is a way to get to Aga quickly off of a quadrant glitch. For many of these categories, Smearmaster, yes, anything goes. There are some categories that have more restrictions on what you can do. A few of them will be no EG, a couple of them won't even allow door glitches.
One of them is going to be no major glitches.
Yeah. But this current run does allow for anything goes.
Chat rightly scoffing at the idea of glitchless runs. Good point, Darby.
See, note, this is being done RTA. So yes, it is RTA viable.
This is a terrible task. He doesn't even manipulate Aghanim's movement.
Oh, we got a blue ball.
Technically, we got 6. 12.
I'm just going to count it in clusters. So that's the second cluster.
18.
3. Wow. Already.
18, wow.
Four. Are we going to get a legendary 15 blue ball?
30.
Are we? Wow, we're at 6 blue balls already.
So we're at 6 redirects, which is 36 blue balls. $42.
Oh, here we go. We're at 6.
Oh,
no 15.
Vitor get 11 like a while back.
Oh darn, only halfway to 15. But that's Aga 1 RTA, and with that, we are done with the Light World bosses. Up next, we have the 100% all heart pieces task, which was completed by FMP with help from Tampa and Yuzuhara. And
You can call that help. He did like half of it.
Fine, co-creator then.
Yeah, co-author.
So FM.
Jip Yuzu.
So that was a one that you guys worked on for how many months? Was it 6, 9?
I think like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow, my time frame is really off.
Honestly, you can stick around if you want.
No, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Josh, who has the world record in the RTA category. So, at least I hope he's going to be here for it. And it's going to be... Oh, yeah. So, I'll kick it over to you guys, and you can continue from there. I'll be back later for other runs that I'm going to commentate, so... Continue on with the objectively better categories.